this very brief video to help answer some of your questions about the interview assignment. The interview assignment is based on your volunteer position description. You'll need to use the volunteer position description and the information in Module 7 and 8, along with the template that we have provided to complete your assignment. For this assignment, we use a conversational approach to interviewing. In other words, if you apply the 80-20 rule, you are holding a guided, structured conversation where you ask or talk 20% of the time and the applicants are talking 80% of the time. And in order to do this, you need to use a couple of different techniques, including an approach that involves you writing your questions in a specific order, starting with the welcoming questions, flowing into the body of the interview, which is where you ask your tiered situational and behavioral questions, and then bringing the interview to a close with some of your closing questions, so that you need to really think ahead of time what it is you want to accomplish with the interview and how can you confirm that the candidate has the best skills, knowledge, abilities, or qualifications for the position. It will also help you in identifying the most qualified candidates, especially if you're interviewing several individuals for one position. So the most important thing to keep in mind with this position is please do not use generic questions. It's very easy for us to know when you've used a generic question, and that's not the approach or the techniques that we use. We expect you to create a series of 10 customized questions that are related to your organization and the volunteer position. So if you're finding you're having some trouble with your position description and your interview questions, you might need to do a little bit of tweaking. The assignment, we do provide you with a template. You may use this particular template. It'll probably save you a lot of time. However, you can customize it any way you like, putting in your own logo. You may change the titles of some of the sections or the headings that make the most sense or are a better match for your organization. The key thing is you have a template and you have identified some of the key sections, including the date, the time, the interviewer's names, the applicant's name, and the title of the volunteer position description. The other thing that you need to include is a simple rating scale. Please do not use a simple scale that has the words poor, satisfactory, or good. Those will not help you make an informed or unbiased decision when you're evaluating the candidate's response to the question. So make sure that you add in a few words or a sentence that explains your choice of a rating scale. So for example, you could use 1 to 3, 1 to 5. Even if you did do poor, satisfactory, or good, you need to explain what that actually means so that when you do go to rate the candidate's response, you can see that the candidate answered perhaps 3 out of the 5 criteria you had for that question. So keep it very simple, something user-friendly, and something that you could actually use. The other thing to keep in mind is to include instructions on how to complete or return the form. This is important if your organization has other staff members interviewing. It could be staff, it could be volunteers, board members, or a combination. It could be people on site or off site. There's countless ways that an interview can be carried out. So the most important thing to keep in mind is you provide a sentence or two explaining that you would like the hard copies of all of the materials, the resumes, the completed interview templates put in a brown paper envelope and returned in a confidential manner to the volunteer manager for storage in the volunteer's personal information file. So the main thing is you're identifying how you are going to secure confidentially the individual's responses to the information that you have collected. We also ask you to include a brief welcome about statement about how you will welcome the candidate. This is really a cue and a reminder to you when you're preparing to interview to set the tone. So to think about how you prepare your office, prepare a receptionist, what materials you need to gather, and how to even set up the room. The same thing applies now with Zoom, since many of us are using virtual interviews. Think about how you could set the stage and welcome the candidate. In other words, it's not like some of the common interview errors videos we posted where you come in and it's a mess and people are not prepared. It just sends a very negative experience. Quite often, your candidate will back out of the interview or be totally turned off, and you've lost an opportunity and potential great volunteer. As you are working through your assignment, remember, take a look at the modules so that you're capturing that interview conversational approach. Your interview questions should flow from start to finish, just like a formal conversation that you're having. So there shouldn't be kind of any interrogation questions or questions that have no context to the position or the organization. That people would kind of stop in the middle of the interview and go, where did that come from? You want everything to flow nicely. The other thing to keep in mind when you're writing your interview questions is what exactly or what do you anticipate the candidate will say in response to your questions. So you should know right off the top of your head, if you're asking this questions, you're expecting the person to say A, B, C, or D, or I would handle it by doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jot those down in brief bullets. This will help you spend more time listening and connecting with the applicant instead of writing for 35 minutes, 40 minutes straight. The idea is you can quickly check off that yes, the candidate had those skills, knowledges, and abilities, and just jot down a few notes in addition to what the candidate responded. This will help you connect your rating scale to the position description and your interview so that you can accurately, consistently, transparently, and answer and rate your candidates when you're comparing them or choosing them for a different positions. So make sure that you think about it. The other thing is, if you are using this technique and you're finding that people are not responding to your interview questions as you expect them to, again, it's another cue or flag that there is something wrong with your interview question. It could be confusing, it could be too generic, or it could be the way the question is phrased that the individual cannot easily answer your question. They should be able to answer and relate to the questions that you're asking. If you're finding that that happens, and quite often you will find one or two of your questions do pose a bit of a problem for the applicants, and you need to do a little bit of tweaking. Then kind of wrap up your interview by having those closing questions, giving the candidate an opportunity to ask questions about you, about the organization, about the position. You can talk about the position then, and then kind of identify the next steps. It could be pulled from your actual recruitment plan, your screening plan, but as you've worked through your assignments, you've identified all of the steps that an individual needs to complete successfully in order to be placed with your organization. So this is your opportunity to speak and remind the volunteer or the candidate what it is that they need to do, or if they need to go for a police check, for a TB test, if they need to provide proof of a driver's license, attend orientation. It's just so that you have all of that information in front of you and things are wrapped up nicely and that the individual knows what to expect moving forward. Hopefully, this will help you complete your interview assignment. You're welcome to send in your assignment early to Larissa or join us on Friday for our virtual office hours.